Good afternoon to one and all, and welcome to the final day of CTiS 2021. And indeed, it has been a very exciting 3 days of the conference. And as we come to the last day, just to quickly run you through today's events, we will start with the keynote with Wolfgang Slani, move on to a teacher presentation session on CT and math, and then we have a special session on CSpathshala. And of course, in the evening, we have a cultural program when we hope all of you will join in and show your skills in singing, dancing, whatever you have decided. But yeah, so without waiting, and let me quickly hand over to Venki. So Venki is the session chair for the keynote. And to introduce Venki, Venki has been part of CSpathshala right since its inception. Over to you, Venki.
Thank you, Sonia. It's a pleasure to introduce Professor Slani, who heads the Institute of Software Technology at Graz University in Austria. He is very passionate about alleviating poverty, and he believes that can be done by teaching everyone to code. And he also believes that the best way to teach coding is to teach students how to make apps on mobile phones, because mobile phones are more accessible than desktops or laptops, and apps are more entertaining than sorting or searching. So he is a founder member of Catarabot, a project which is an open source free project to allows you to program apps and connect to all kinds of devices through your mobile phones. And a variant of that, Code and Stitch won an innovation award at the university for building gender gap. It essentially allows women programmers to do embroidery, I believe, and to program their embroidery. So it's not just alleviating poverty, also building the gender gap that he believes. He's won several awards, including an IEEE Best Paper Award for the work coming out of the Catarabot project. So I hand it over to Professor Slani to entertain us. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to talk to you today. I have been in India many times, also just before the pandemic, and always enjoyed it a lot, and have a lot of ongoing work together with both institutions as well as students in India. Just this summer, I had the pleasure to mentor 3 students from India during the Google Summer of Code event, in which Catarabot is a mentoring organization. But without further ado, let's jump into my presentation. And the first thing is, my slides. So I try to close everything. Good. So the talk, as you have seen, and I was introduced, is about Catarabot. It's a project that I started 11 years ago. So it's a long-term project, and it's a free open source project that mainly relies on the work of students, volunteers from around the world. First of all, my motivation was that I was, always a teacher, but I was asked like 15 years ago to participate in an outreach program targeted at children from our university, where I was supposed to teach young children in the age from 8 to 12 how to become interested in computer science. And of course, I came to know various approaches and also learned about the concept of computational thinking. I recently heard that computational thinking was actually a word that was already used a long time ago by one of the proponents, the most famous proponents of teaching programming and computer science to children, Seymour Papert from the MIT. And he's famous for many things, among others, the Mindstorms book, in which in one of the parts he mentioned computational thinking already in the 70s of last century. So, oops, yeah. Here's one famous citation.
You've not started your presentation. This is some other screen.
Okay. I'm surprised.
I think it's a different window that is open.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, it's not obvious. I saw that. Where is that? Ah, I see. Just a moment, please. So I want to share my whole screen. What's that? Interesting. There seems to be no way to share the whole screen. Interesting. Okay, I will share.
Just go to share screen.
Yeah, I tried. But it only offers me the different windows, not the whole screen, which is not useful. Let me just check, maybe. Anyway, I will start with the PowerPoint. That should, and then I will switch to the other window. So, is it now showing the citation?
Yes, now it's fine.
Good. So this is one of the famous citations, which is the basis of constructionism, which is a learning theory pioneered by Seymour Papert, who was it's called constructionism. And it's in this citation, he's saying children learn best when they are actively engaged in constructing something. And that can be anything. It can be whatever they want, but if they have their own goal and they want to do something about it, construct it, then they will, do whatever is necessary to research it, to do it, to learn from it, and to internalize whatever knowledge is necessary. And he started with those robots that could draw on a paper, because it was something that was where people could take it into their hands and create something with mathematics. He was a mathematician. One of his other famous citations, which are very relevant to the settings, the topic of this conference is the following. Every maker of video games knows something that the makers of curriculum don't seem to understand. You'll never see a video game being advertised as being easy. Kids who do not like school will tell you it's not because it's too hard, it's because it's boring. And this brings me to the barriers that I have identified in the course of my many years of working with children and teaching and studying various approaches to the barriers to computational thinking, or bringing computational thinking to young people. So there are many topics. The one that Seymour Papert just addressed was the part about the interests. So there must be motivation. It must be interesting to them. It must be meaningful to them, so that they even, consider wanting to to use their brains thinking about it. And computational thinking is a lot about thinking. Then they also need the time. I have tried to work with mathematicians in schools, and at least in Austria here, the problem is that they don't have any time to do that. They don't have, because the curriculum is so full with things that there is no flexibility in introducing any new concepts. Students have to learn about trigonometry and, geometry and whatever, differentiation, integration, and so on. But the outcome, to be honest, is quite poor. And yeah, but I mean, this is a general problem. There's not enough time here also. And also we are competing. Computational thinking is competing with other interests, like, I don't know, watching Bollywood movies or, using social media and what else. So we are also competing here for the time of students, because one thing is clear: if you look at the theory, the psychological theory of flow from the Hungarian-American psychologist Csikszentmihalyi, flow is where you dive into some topic and forget about time and other things you want to do. Once you go into this flow state, time will flow. And that means you need a lot of time. And that's also something that is usually not available in a school setting, because there the time is sliced up into many small pieces, and there's not enough time compared to whatever is needed to really achieve complex goals, to construct something. Gender, surprisingly, is also a topic. This is a little bit surprising, but I have observed that almost everywhere there are a few exceptions, and there have been studies showing that, I mean, for whatever reason, be it societal or genetic, whatever reasons, there is a dichotomy between the interests of boys and girls into technology, not so much into mathematics, but into technology, especially, whatever the reasons, but it's a fact of life. And there are some surprising exceptions, like I will show you later, where technology and female interests surprisingly meet, and where we have a chance to change things. Then there's also the question of basic skills, which is it's a big barrier if young people cannot read or do not have a basic understanding of mathematics. And that seems to be the case in various areas in the world, also including in India, as far as I learned, because the literacy rate is not equally high everywhere in India, as we all know, but it's not limited to India, of course. It's to some degree everywhere in the world. So that's another issue. And then there's the big issue, which is very relevant for schools, which is, where do we get the computers from? If we think about computational thinking and what software to use, which is less a problem, but mainly it's a problem about the computers and the space in schools, and also to a large degree to the knowledge of teachers and the skills they have to teach these things. If I look now at the number of participants, it's a free event, it's on a weekend, there's no school. I see there are currently 68 participants. Well, I have participated in many, 69 now. I've participated in many such events, and there have been events in a similar direction since 50 years, and it doesn't change. So, it's very nice that you're all here, that you listen to all those nice talks, but it's not sufficient. It doesn't have any impact, I'm sorry to say. Even if I give a talk in the largest newspaper, for the largest newspaper, I mean, an interview, or do it in the news, in the Austrian national TV, doesn't help. It doesn't reach children. So the impact is another question. And language, surprisingly, language. all of you speak English. I speak English, even though it's not my native language. And yeah, most of us adults speak English, but it's not really true for the world. I remember when I was in Chennai, I met 2 years ago, I met quite a number of, for instance, drivers who couldn't speak any English, but their general level of intelligence was very high. I mean, basically, we all have supercomputers in our brains, and they have many skills, and I'm sure that they wouldn't have any problems with computational thinking if we let them, if we give them the access, but the language is still a problem because they don't speak English, and most of the programming languages on a worldwide scale are written in English. In China, there is a Chinese version of Python that is quite popular. So I understand this is also a problem everywhere in the world, besides the English-speaking countries or the English-speaking populations. But for children especially, it's not that obvious. So language is another part. And the last part here is, well, this is something that is maybe a little bit strange, but you know, human civilization is not static. There's always something new coming up. And yeah, there have been, well, I would say exponential technical developments in the last, well, since the beginning of civilization. And we are now in a new phase where we, you know, lead the planet, understand the brain, understand biology, understand a lot of things, are in the process of reaching the point where we can automatize rational thought, and maybe also more than rational thought. So I have been shocked. I have been shocked really hard about the jumps and leaps that have been done in the field of artificial intelligence in the last 2 years, more or less, or 4 years, we can say. I just looked at my wife yesterday. She showed me some app that allows her with a few clicks to make small movies with her face, where she perfectly dances and sings in a Bollywood movie, which was, you know, really shocking for me. And then she made a small movie where I was playing James Bond. And I just saw that Google published a new API this summer that allows to emulate natural speech in a very natural way, which sounds perfectly like from a human. And you know, with the pandemic and everything going virtual, and all of this, it becomes more and more difficult to understand whether the, you know, the person on the other side is really a human or is maybe, you know, the next step of evolution. So I also integrated into our software recently GPT-3, the famous new AI from OpenAI. And it's surprising, you know, you can ask it any question, it will give meaningful answers, and it even has common sense. You can give it new, you know, exercises or, you know, tasks or situations, and it will react like a human. And GPT-4 is coming out reportedly by the end of this year. And there are many other, you know, companies like Google or Amazon or some Chinese companies who produce larger and larger AI. So for me, I was shocked and actually surprised, and many people were surprised how quickly it's now going. There's also a kind of famous live demo of Codex, which will be integrated now, or is already integrated into GitHub as a coding buddy. So it has really become easy, even though it's still the beginning, to program together with someone else, and the other person is not a person but an AI. AI. So that's quite shocking. So I think all of this, what we are talking about now, education, schools, and so on, will be tremendously impacted by these changes in a way that we cannot even imagine. And it's coming very, very soon. And I don't know what to think about it. I would be interested in hearing your thoughts about this in the discussion. Anyway, we try in our project to address all these points, all of them, but that also means that some of them are not intuitive, and we have to break with things that how it has been done in the past, because looking to the last 50 years, all those attempts that were made didn't work. Didn't work. I'm very sorry to say, but it didn't work because there were some barriers. All of them happened. All of them are happening now, and I'm not claiming that I have the perfect solution, but I try at least to address most of those things. How? We'll see now. So first, this is the motto, low floor, wide walls, high ceiling. That's the motto of the Scratch project, and the Scratch project is perfect. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful project, which, I mean, I'm using Scratch. We're working together with the Scratch team. We're using the software from them in our own software. So the Scratch code is integrated partly into the Catarabot code, and it's wonderful. I would say it's our elder sister project. So the elder sister series, low floor, meaning it's really easy to enter the room. Wide walls means you have many possibilities, and high ceiling, you can go very much up. Actually, wide wall means that many people can participate, and some of the things that they did, for instance, offering the software in a large number of languages. I think they have, I'm not sure, but I think more than 60 languages in which the software is offered. And I guess all of you know Scratch, so I won't say anything more about this, but this was really our inspiration. And Catarabot is like the, little sister project of Catarabot. So little sister, but a little bit different. Low floor, wide walls, high ceiling, that's all in the room. It's like in a classroom. You have a room. And we thought, this came up later, that we actually don't need to stay in the classroom. We want to go outside. And with a smartphone, it's possible to go outside. As it was mentioned, Catarabot is entirely based on smartphones, because going back here, that gives us the devices and the space. And Catarabot is the software. So these three things are basically addressed. The world also, because we try to go into all possible places wherever. If you look at the world, you'll see in a moment. And the sky, because it's possible to mount a phone on satellites. We can control drones. I have shown this already in the past. When I was in Chennai at the university and gave a talk, we had the drone live programmed and flying in front of the participants. So that was kind of fun. It's not possible to show it now, but basically that's our motto and also part of the title of the talk. So, but let's look at these few statistics here. Here you see evolution from 2009, I think, till 2017, and it continues in the same way. Here, the blue line is the number of, the market share in desktop PCs, including also laptops. The green line are smartphones, and the violet one is tablets. And you see a clear trend here. And this includes everyone, companies, everyone. So there's a clear trend towards more and more smartphones and less computers. And everyone knows this. this is how the statistic looks for India. It's even more pronounced, so it's very clear that there is something going on. If you look at young people, it's even much more pronounced. And wherever you go nowadays, I know that in India also some of the local governments are basically gifting smartphones and tariffs and everything to young people who do not have already their own smartphone. And this basically solves the one access problem that we had for the last 50 years, which was the access to the computers. And it's not solved by giving laptops, etc., to school children. First of all, it's quite expensive, but there's also the problem that you need always new ones, and this doesn't happen. It never happened in the past. It never worked. So this is the smartphones that the kids own themselves is something that solves the device problem, the computer problem, because those smartphones are powerful computers. They're very fast compared to all the computers, also laptops, and they have higher resolution and they have better access to the internet and so on. Also, I have to say that I found that the internet, the cost for mobile data is very, very low in India. Yeah? So it's something that is also in favor of using smartphones. But there are psychological reasons why smartphones in schools are a difficult topic, which is also understandable because it's a big distraction for kids, because there are games on it, there's social media, there are movies, there's some, music and whatever. So it's not an easy solution to use smartphones. But as an aside, the same can be said also about computers. So yeah. And too much control is actually the opposite of good very often. So if you force someone to do it, there will be a lot of reaction and the learning effect is not perfect. So let me say, Catarabot, as was mentioned, we have done things with stitching machines. So that's one part of the approach, how we try to make it more attractive to girls, and it was actually very, very successful. So the response from all over the world, China, Japan, everywhere in the world, African countries, was very good, because that's something, those stitching machines, which allows you to put some patterns on your clothes, they somehow they are very attractive to all young people, but especially to girls, because it has something to do with fashion, with design, and it allows to combine mathematics and programming skills together to create something beautiful that you can also show to other people. So it's very attractive to young people, especially females, and that's a good approach to bring programming skills or computational thinking skills to those young people, and we combine it with the smartphone. So now it's possible to create patterns, whatever patterns you want, with as many colors as you want on your smartphone, transfer it to some embroidery machine, and then put it on your t-shirts or trousers or anything. And it also can be combined with electronics, so you can make it shine or such things. So it's something directly in this direction of creating something, producing something, making your own goals and then realizing. For instance, I was very interested in creating a Christmas present, and let me show that to you, for my wife, using our software. And I will share another screen now. Yeah, here. So this is a bookstore, a publisher from India, the London Jungle Book. Very nice book from some very quite famous artist from India, who came to London and interpreted. It was his first trip to a foreign country and first trip to a large city, and he interpreted everything he saw there in terms of his art. And my wife translated this book to another language. And I'm not sure, do you see the photo of the T-shirt?
Yes, yes, we are seeing the photo of the T-shirt.
Yeah, so this is one part where you see that was his interpretation of the English people in London, represented as bats hanging from the tree, where he described it. That was his impression, where they were hanging out at night in the pubs and discussing their thing. So this was my motivation to create this T-shirt for my wife as a picture, and it was made with 20,000 stitches on an embroidery machine, and took me quite some time to create it. But I mean, I made a huge program for this to actually be able to transpose the art into this image. So it was very, you see, in my case, of course, I cannot translate it to the young people, but I see it all the time when we do events with kids about the embroidery. It's very popular, and I fully understand it. So now let me try to again change the screen, because I want to show you also practical things. Because now I was talking all the time, I want to show you a little bit the software. Let's see if I can do that. Yes, good. So again, I have to share the screen. So this is the software. It's called Pocket Code. It's an app for Android and iOS, iPhones, and it allows us to create small or large programs using a programming language similar to Scratch, which actually can do a few more things, taking advantage of all the capabilities of modern smartphones. But first, I want to show you here, this is a sample project from embroidery, and it's just a very small pattern. Each dot that you see is one stitch, and this pattern can now be exported here with this embroidery effect to some other program, and then actually stitched on a T-shirt. But this is just a small mathematical example. You can do whatever, as you saw in my other picture, whatever you want. And this is just with 9 bricks that represent the code, basically. I want to show you, before I show you how to program, a few other examples, but also how this looks like. So the newest project are really the newest project that have just been uploaded, and it's a huge project. So we have altogether more than 5 million downloads from the various stores and so on. So it's popular, but I have to say it's also growing exponentially. Last year, at the beginning of last year, we had only 2 million, and now we have 5 million. So it's really going up. The pandemic also actually helped, because more young people had time at home to play with their phones, and yeah, it's growing on a worldwide scale. Let's see if it continues like this after the pandemic. But yeah, anyway, so here's another nice example. This is a jigsaw puzzle that also, like, I'm not sure how fluid it is, but here on my screen it looks very fluid. So all those puzzle pieces fell down, and now if you look, you will see my finger is a white dot here, and I can do, I can turn the pieces like this, and also use several fingers to move them all up in one place. I'm not sure. I think this one is here in the corner, if I'm not mistaken. Or yeah. So this piece now in the left top corner is fixed. So let's see, is this here below? Yeah. So now I have those two and so on. So what does this show? Actually, it's quite interesting. I mean, first of all, it shows that it's possible to use multi-touch. And multi-touch would be, I mean, up to 10 fingers is not something that is obvious on another device. But why is multi-touch interesting? We don't have any special special capabilities for the multi-touch. For those of you who know Scratch, it's like in Scratch. You can access the point where the finger is touching, but beyond that, there are just mathematical functions. So if kids want to create such a puzzle, they will need a lot of trigonometry and also functions like arctangents 2, which I learned especially to fix this. But this is the interesting point. I learned about this. I had to research it because I wanted to achieve some goal. And it was a difficult goal, but I achieved it. And it's the same. We see this again and again with kids. When they have some goal that they set for themselves, not from someone else, but which they decide themselves, and they want to solve it, and we are giving them the capabilities to do it, then they will do the necessary research. It's also a fantastic time now because of the internet, so it has become possible to do this. And it's not obvious to be able to do this, but yeah, it has become possible. So yeah. So this is another small program that was created with the pocket code here. Let me see a few others that I can show you, and then I will show you how to program actually. And also, address anything. Oh, this was also an interesting thing. When I was in Chennai, my wife also visited some specialist artist lady who was a specialist about column, and she explained to us everything, how she did the columns and so on. And then while I was waiting for all of this, I made a small program that allows me to also draw things like columns, or looking a little bit like columns, if you know that. And I showed it to her, and she was absolutely fascinated, and actually talking to me more than to my wife, and starting to program, even though she was a kind of not so young lady, but she was totally fascinated by being able to draw suddenly those images on her own phone. And it was also like this: if I shake it, it will go away, and then it can start again, whatever. So this was, it's all about motivation. Whatever is motivating for you, if you want to solve Sudokus, or if you want to create some, for instance, I don't know, this is a perfect watch, which I'm showing you the programs that I made, but I made this while I was brushing my teeth, just to see whether I could do it. And it's a watch that this is showing the local time here in Austria, is more perfect than the real watch, because it you never have to, it has the perfect time from the internet, even taking into account those the seconds that switch sometimes at the beginning of a year and so on. So it's really perfect, more perfect than the one that exists in reality. So it's, with virtual thing, it's not such a big thing. between reality and not. Here, this is another program which takes into account the face detection. So here I'm steering this small panda with movements of my head. I mean, real movements in front of the camera, taking into account and it counts. Counts how often I bumped the ball. There are other similar games that I can do, but this, of course, this one, the next one only works if I have my phone connected to a big screen like I have here. So what it does basically is that I am using all the sensors, the inclination, acceleration, magnetic field sensors, integrate those numbers and use the phone like a Wii controller from Nintendo towards the big screen when I project the image from my phone to the large smart TV or something like this, or in this case, my computer. So if I do this, I can basically play with using my phone. I can move the phone around. Sorry, not so gifted there, but I don't know if you see where I play like this. I'm moving this up and down. So this is really my phone that I can use like a controller to play with this ball. And for those of you who know Scratch, we added a few things besides all those sensors and so on. We added a concept which is very useful, is the concept of scenes. So here you see a program, The Binding of Krishna, which was made by, oops, I think I lost the connection. Just give me a moment. Do you still see my screen? Probably not, right? So I'll just reconnect.
We are seeing you right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I have to reconnect. I think I touched the wrong. Just a moment. So besides, while I'm reconnecting, I will explain a little bit. Besides what is the problem? Besides the sensors, we introduced a few new things, which, yeah, now it works again. To make it more interesting. And one of them was the possibility to create larger games. So now I have to share again. And each of those buttons here, each of those menu entries are like its own Scratch program with its own background and its own objects, actors or objects, we call them, or sprites. So this allows us to create much larger projects. In this case here, for instance, it's a small program where we, like it's with sound also. I'm not sure if you hear the sound also. It's very nice sound. So this is a game with some background story about Krishna and the story and so on. It's all going on, but I'll skip that now. And what I can basically do here is I can control Krishna and go to the next room, and there are some opponents that I have to fight and collect some things here. I can hit them and yeah, whatever. So this becomes more and more complex, and this is also something to be played on the large screen and can be as complex as possible. I just want to say this has many levels, this game, and becomes more and more complex. And it's really a big game with lots of code behind it. So it's possible to create huge games. And this game was programmed by 5 students from India, who programmed on this for 2 months, all of them computer science university students, 5 of them for 2 months. So it can be quite large and complex. It's not limited. It looks as if it was for children, but actually the complexity can be very high. And because it's structured into scenes, into objects, into different things, it's very object oriented in some limited sense, but in a good sense, which allows to make really huge projects. And it's also possible to interact with the internet. I was mentioning already GPT-3. I'm not allowed to show you the live version of GPT-3 because of the licensing restrictions for the beta version, but yeah, it works. Yeah, so you can actually, using the speech recognizer and using the speech synthesizer, you can talk with GPT-3 about anything with just a few lines of code, of pocket code here of Catarabot. So let me show you how to make a new program, because there's another thing that I want to show, which is a kind of demo. And here I will now create a new object from my media library. We have this huge library of objects, actors and objects that can be used. And let me choose this small penguin here. So I'll download it, and then I can penguin, and now I have it here, and I can yeah, first of all, here I have the list of possible bricks. Yeah, so there's also the possibility here with your bricks to create new bricks. And for instance, here in device, we have those bricks that allows us to access the internet or open web pages or download images from the web, which is also quite useful. It's possible to create, for instance, something like Google Maps with this, because there are many services, APIs on the internet that allow us to get map data, basically. But in this case, I will show you also something that is quite useful to create games. Basically, it's the possibility to use a built-in physics engine. So if I do this, the penguin will fall down because the default direction for gravity is downwards. And then what I can do is I can make it a little bit smaller, and also say that it should bounce from the walls. So you see, it's very quick. I'm just selecting things here. And it's also very similar to Scratch. For those of you who know Scratch, there's this forever loop and if on edge bounce. This is another thing here. All the text that you see, all the explanations are very straightforward. It's not abbreviated. We use common language so that people usually understand, even young children understand what we mean. Of course, not for everything. They don't know yet about gravity, but they can try it out. Nothing can be broken. So it's very straightforward. So if I do this, then we'll have this penguin just bouncing around. And one interesting thing is here that it's not a square, it's really cut out, and it's cut out on the fly. So we have here our oops, why is it interesting? Not sure why it's in landscape mode, but yeah, we'll use it in landscape then. So here I can yeah, I can add some special things here. If I do this and then save this and play again, you will see that the new parts are again correctly used to bounce, and this is immediately integrated into the object. And then I could, for instance, add some another event if the object bounces from any edge, then I want to add a small vibration. Of course, not a vibration of 1 second, that's too long, but something like 10 milliseconds. And then if I do this, I will feel the bouncing. Yeah? So each time it connects, I will feel how the phone vibrates a little bit. What else do we have? I can also change the direction of the gravity, which I have here. I can set the gravity in the physics engine, and in this case, I need, -10 is pointing down. So here I have all the sensors. So if I multiply, for instance, with the inclination, and I can try that out, what kind of numbers this gives me. This actually, if I hold the phone in the normal way, this gives me large negative numbers. And if I turn it in the other direction around the x-axis, it becomes large. So this will, do it correctly for the x-axis. I'll do something similar here for the x inclination in the other direction. And if I do this, it will fall down in whatever way I hold my phone in the right direction. So this allows it to, with a few touches of my finger on the screen without typing anything, to create something that is already going in the direction of games. And games are something that makes sense for kids because they play games. I mean, adults also play games, but that's something very natural to do. And yeah, so I showed you many things. There are lots of other things in the program. It's a huge program project. Yeah, lots. There's the whole website where basically you have millions of projects that are shared from students with other, not students, but young people, children. Then you have a Scratch converter where you can import Scratch projects, and you have a huge number of extensions which can be activated in the settings, for instance, the embroidery extension, or there is robots, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and so on. So there's a lot here, and there are also accessibility settings for users with special needs, like cognitive or motoric or visual impairments. So we try to do whatever is possible to support as many kids as possible. Going back to my slides, I want to explain a little bit more. Oh yeah. So it's here. So yeah, it's we have a history of 11 years. So for instance, we did a game jam, worldwide game jam, also in India, about Alice in Wonderland in 2015. We did another one with Samsung, and now we are doing events with Huawei. We're trying to do, to make it attractive. And my aim is to have some impact on the world. So that's why the project is large and can be sustained for a long time. I have seen many similar projects besides the Scratch project, but others And all those, especially all the commercial projects, had a limited lifetime. So because there's not much money in education, I have to be honest, and all the companies that try to do something in this area are not very successful because people are not willing to invest a lot of money in this kind of education about computational thinking. So my approach is to make it all free and have volunteers help. And then there are some companies that also like to help, which is very welcome. But currently we mainly, I mean, to more than 95%, we rely on the work of volunteers. So here there's a small statistics from OpenHub, which is a site that collects statistics about open source projects. And as you see, we have 682 contributors on GitHub who have helped create this code, and it's an equivalent based on some, old models, known established models of computer science, of 663 years of effort if everything would have been done by a single person. So it's quite huge, and there has been a lot of work that has been already done. But there's still a lot what we want to do. For instance, starting from 3D versions up to things like CodeX, where kids have a coding buddy that they can ask any kind of questions and get help in their programming, or control more things like augmented reality and all this. It's limited in a limited way. It's already possible now. But there's so much more work to do if we have the time. I have to say, with all these things now coming up with AI and I don't know, maybe the singularity coming up, whatever, we'll see in the next years. But yeah, we'll continue to do our best. And by the way, those 682 contributors are only the developers. We also have lots of contributors who are not developers, who are not included here, namely translators, designers, people who help us with the social media, and educators, also lots of educators that help us create the wiki and resources that can be used then in schools and also by the kids themselves. Though I have to say that the best way for us to reach out to the kids to get them interested is not at all through schools. We have done so much with schools, but to be honest, it has limited impact. The biggest impact are the app stores, which have billions of users and customers worldwide, and our software is free there, and kids simply discover it. That's it. And so they discover it, and that will be the largest part. And the second biggest part is what the kids are doing themselves. Basically, they are creating YouTube videos on a huge scale. There's no chance to see this. It's all over the world. It's massive, and it's the best way to recruit new users for our project. So yeah, coming back to the slide with the barriers, we try to capture the interest through our approach to allow them to solve their own problems, be it new games or whatever else. Time is difficult, but since we are out of school, it's possible to enter this flow state for them and be completely engrossed in whatever they are doing with our software. And this is happening a lot. We have seen this with kids spending days and weeks on their projects, which would never be possible in a school schedule. Then gender, what we are doing here, there are also other events, but basically one I have the biggest hopes now is this whole area of design and creating art which is wonderful. Basic skills we try to address in making it as simple as possible, and it's also related to the one before the last, the language part, because we make it available in also close to 50 languages, including, you know, African language. Africa is a big challenge because they have more than 3,000 living languages, which is a challenge for everyone doing software for those areas. Then devices is clear, software is free. Space, meaning that since we are out of the school context and the phone can be taken wherever you want, you can use it. The users, the kids can use it wherever they want. So there's no need for a computer room or some special area. They can just use it outside, in their home, in the car, in the subway, wherever they want. And the knowledge part is that we try to make all the knowledge publicly available through wikis, through websites, through videos, especially those videos created by the users themselves in their languages, because we can't do the best video in Portuguese for Brazil, or, you know, in Russian or Chinese or whatever. So all of this is done by the users, and much better than we can do it. And there is no need, because of the internet nowadays, for having skilled teachers. It's a fact of life, because, you know, I love teachers like you, 124, 123 people attending here now, but you are the absolute elite, and it doesn't scale. It doesn't scale for 50 years. So the way to scale is through accepting that there must be other ways, like using YouTube and wikis and the internet. And that works perfectly well. And language, I was talking already. And the last point is evolution. And here I see now the future, and that's linked to the knowledge part of doing things similar to codex. So having someone, an AI that can be asked for help, whatever else happens. And with this, I see that I'm already 2 minutes over my allotted time, and there should be some time also for discussion and questions. I see that there are many chat messages. I haven't looked at them, but yeah, please, I will close now at this time, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much for a very interesting talk. The chat is full of appreciations for the talk. So there are a couple of questions. The first one is, how does one adopt this if they want to adopt in their schools? Okay.
You mean for schools?
Yeah, I guess it is for schools.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I mentioned, first of all, you have to accept if you want to use it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it should be used in schools, because I recognize that there are many barriers to use it in schools. One of them being to allow kids to use smartphones in schools. But if you want to use it in schools, there are good ways to do it. And we have studied it and published some papers. It was research that was funded by the European Commission, because clearly in Europe we are also interested in solving the same problems like about the devices. So if you can bring yourself as a teacher to experiment with allowing kids to use their own smartphones, not devices, not tablets from schools or whatever, because that makes huge problems. Imagine you have to update them or charge them every night. So forget about this. If you can bring yourself to allow kids to use their own smartphones, then there are ways. But then there are more barriers. Like, for instance, you also have to experiment with allowing them to set their own goals, which is also something that goes against everything that you usually allow in schools, as far as I know. I mean, there are exceptions. Yeah? There are very good schools that, for instance, use the constructionist approach, where you can allow kids to to set their own goals and then let them and support them in doing it. And that works perfectly, but it takes a lot of courage to do that as a school teacher or as a director. And then, my approach is simply to have kids, for instance, let's say in a course about history, history. Let's say you learn about ancient Indian history. Wonderful. Maybe select some area. And then ask, simply as a teacher, I would ask the kids, okay, you now have 1 month. Let's make a competition. Everyone in the class is allowed to make a game about this and that area. You'll have to do a little bit of research about what happened during that time. And then, make whatever you want. That can be an animation, it can be a simulation, it can be a quiz, it can be, whatever you want. And if you want to work in small teams, you're welcome, because not everyone is gifted in programming. Some people are more in the storytelling area, some are good in design, others will contribute the music and so on. So if you let them, they will enjoy it and they will learn a lot while doing it, because if they enjoy it, then automatically they will be more involved and remember later in a much better way what they learned, instead of just learning for some test. So that's my advice, but I understand that it takes a lot of courage for schools and especially teachers to try this out. It's not something that is obvious.
Yeah, thank you. That question was by Shweta Gupta. Now Jan or Ramanujan has a question. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, thanks, Wolfgang. As always, wonderful to listen to this. So I have a couple of questions. One is about collaborative learning and social interaction. There is always this apprehension that working with apps might reduce that for kids. So that's one thing. In terms of projects, can we address them? That's one. Another is about the kids' growth. I mean, as they learn more, stepped up challenges or graded projects, for pedagogic purposes, how are they, I don't know how these have been thought through. So I would like to hear more on these.
Yeah. So about the collaboration, then you have the same problem if you do it with traditional computers, because then people sit in front of the computer and everyone has a desk. Actually, it's easier with smartphones to do it, because there you can move around and people look at the same screen. I see this all the time. Young people come together and work together, show themselves each other what they're doing and asking questions. So also, we have to say that the smartphones nowadays for young people are a communication device. And in that age, the social interaction is also very important. They learn how to, communicate with each other, and they use the smartphone as their primary communication device, especially now in times of the pandemic where they cannot meet in real life. This is actually something that has become essential all around the world. Of course, there are problems. It's not the same going outside and playing, doing sports and so on. So we shouldn't completely neglect that. But the fun thing is actually with the phone, you can do that outside. You can very easily, for instance, make a program that allows you to compute your velocity when running, or the speed of your batting if you play cricket or something like this. All of this can be done with smartphones. So smartphones are very compatible with all kind of activities, also and especially with communicative and collaborative activities. I think more so than with traditional approaches with traditional computers. The second part about how to integrate that into the curriculum and way how to assess the capabilities. This is of course something that this has to be looked at from a traditional point of view, because, for instance, you cannot control as a school teacher what the entrance exam for some university will be, or what the companies expect from those pupils that you supervise. So I know from one very nice school in Thailand, in Bangkok, which is totally focused on constructionists, and there are no teachers in the school, only scientists that support the kids. They, in the last year, when some of the students or most of the students decide they want to challenge themselves and enter university, they will just learn for the entrance exam, and they all succeed very well because they became very self-organized and very, focused in their work, because they had to rely on themselves. It's a challenge also for the kids, and not all of them will manage, and not all the parents are also compatible with this approach. But it's something that has been successful in those areas where the schools and the teachers could bring themselves to try it out. And it's not obvious.
Yeah, that's a challenge. So there's a question from Vineet Kapoor. How does this compare with the MIT App Inventor?
Yeah. So App Inventor is another program that was inspired also, to be honest, by Scratch. And the way App Inventor went, I mean, I think it's great. It's a wonderful program as well. The way it went is that it's a mixture, because you need still the PC to program, and then you create an app. So the motivation with the app is still there, but you still have the problem that you need a device. You need a traditional computer. So that limits it in a certain way. And there are also some other aspects. Some of them are around, let's say, our approach is much more game oriented. So we have this physics engine and so on, whereas with App Inventor, it's much easier to make more serious applications that have, the traditional lists and all those things. So it's more, I would say, I mean, I have seen many games also created with App Inventor, but in a general thing, it's possible to make more business-oriented apps with it as well, which is not easy with our approach. We are totally focused on games. And the third aspect is, in my opinion, that because we have this hierarchy of scenes and objects, which do not exist in App Inventor, it's actually much, much easier in Catarabot to make larger projects with 10,000 of command lines, basically, which, because of the structuring, are much easier to organize in one brain. So about the computational thinking aspect, but it's a limited experience with App Inventor. I have the feeling that Catarabot allows to create more complex and larger programs.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. This is an anonymous question. Can you give an example on how can gender be a barrier?
Excuse me, I didn't.
Can you give an example on how can gender be a barrier?
Yeah, gender can be a barrier in that way. I mean, it's area restricted, but if you look at IITs and the number of female versus male students, you will see, excuse me, but there is a difference. And also if you look in industry, but it's more pronounced in Western countries. There has been a huge study about over many countries over decades, which showed that the higher actually the economic development index was for a country, the less female you had in technology fields. So if you look at some countries like Malaysia, they have very high number of female computer science students. Because there, if you want to succeed as a boy, you will study petrol industry and not computer science. And if you look at Austria, for instance, in our high schools, there are elective courses for computer science. What do you think is the percentage of female students in those classes where they can choose by themselves whether they want to follow computer science or not? What do you think is the percentage in Austria, in Europe? It's difficult to guess, but try.
15%.
15? No, it's 1%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed.
So we have a problem, you see.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Swami. It was a great talk.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure many others enjoyed it. And hopefully this will lead to several people contacting you for collaborations.
Please share my email address. You can also find
sure. We will,
sure.
We'll do that. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Over to Sonia.
Yeah, thank you so much for such an inspiring talk, and I'm sure everybody is eager to go and try out. And we have a 15-minute break before we start the next session, but Savita has some interesting poll questions which she will take, and we will start the next session, which is on CT and math at 3:30.
Quick, Sonia, where are you going? Once again, good afternoon, all of you. Being the last day, we thought let's have some fun. So we are going to have fun with one of our good friends called Beaver. Hope the screen is visible. Atul, is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So as you see on the screen, this is a very good friend, Kitu the Beaver, who's going to be with us for the next 10 minutes. And let's enjoy it and see what Beaver has to say, or Kitu has to say. Right. So on the screen, you can see the flower bed over there, right? So the gardener planted flowers in 3 rows. He planted 4 flowers in each row. He had been told that in each row, the white flower, this is the white flower, should be closer to the fence than the blue flower. So that's the riddle we have. And the question is, which rows are planted according to the instruction? So let me just read again. The gardener planted flowers in 3 rows. Okay, he planted 4 flowers in each row. So we have a violet, a white, a blue, and a red. So he has been told that in each row, the white flower should be closer to the fence than the blue flower. So you all need to guess which is the option here, which gives the instruction. Can you please fire the poll, Vinny? So you have been given the options over there. So which rows are planted according to the instruction? Only 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, or all the rows? So you can give in your answers. What do you think, Sonia? Which would be the right one?
I'm still guessing.
Okay, so we have the answers there in the chat box too. 1 and 3. Okay. We have the answer as C, C, C. Right. So do you think C is right, Sonia?
Has everybody answered in the poll as well? Yes. So a large number think it's C, right?
Anyone feels that there is another answer over here, or because we have a larger crowd saying it is C, that is 1 and 3, where the figure itself shows over here 1 and 3. So do we move on to the next one?
Yes. So did you all enjoy it? And we should have some activity in the chat box. Come on.
Please.
Yes. Okay. Great.
Great. Okay.
Okay. This is to have fun with all of you today because Sabita decided that the break should be a lot more fun and we should have all of you with us, right? Okay. So we'll quickly go to the next one.
As usual, Sonia loves to play. So this time she's playing ring toss. She throws 5 rings around a pole. Every ring that successfully lands around the pole scores points. Any ring that misses the pole wins no points. So you can see the table given below. The first throw has 5 points, second 4, third 3, fourth throw has 2, and fifth throw has 1. So we need to find, as the figure given over here in the image, what will be the points. Sonia threw her 5 rings as shown in this figure. How many points did she get? So we can see that we have a yellow, a blue, a green, a pink, and a dark blue or a white dark blue. So we need to calculate what is the points she scored. And we have the points given over here as per the throw.
Can we have the poll question?
So the table over here gives you for every throw what is the score. So the first throw has got 5 points, second 4, third is 3, fourth is 2, and the fifth is 1. So can we calculate, Sonia? So we have the blue, I think we put the blue ring first. So the blue has got 5. And then you missed, right?
Yes.
You missed the pink, you missed the violet, and the yellow. So 4.
What is the score?
I think it should be 6. I don't know.
I should get 9. I'm good at the throws. Come on.
Yeah, but then you see you missed the first one. You missed the yellow. Can you see here? The yellow's out. Then again the blue one.
Okay.
You too. Okay, fine. Then again you missed one more, the pink. So 0.3, you lose 3 over there. I mean, you didn't score a 3. And then you have the fourth one. There you scored the green. And the last one you missed. So you missed 3 out of your 5 throws.
I'm not good at this. So let's see what all of you have to say.
Wow.
What do you think? Somebody says
It's
5.
fine.
That is even less. No.
But then I think majority of them think you've scored a 6.
Okay. So maybe better try
Better
next
next
time. Yeah. Thanks, Sabita. Sabita has one more.
Wow. I love robots. Okay. So we have here 5 statements describing the 3 robots. Okay. So we have here Tina and Meena are smiling. So this is a statement. Tina, Meena smiling. Tina, Meena, and Leena each have 2 legs. Meena has a round head and Leena has 2 legs. All 3 robots have 5 fingers. Lena or Tina have their hands raised. So these are the 5 statements. It's too confusing for me. Now, which of these 5 statements are true?
Come on, try, Savita.
Tina and Meena are smiling. Vinit, can we have the poll question fire, please?
Yeah.
Tina and Meena are smiling. Is Tina and Meena smiling? Yes. Tina, Meena, and Leena each have 2 legs.
Do they?
Oh no. Tina's got only 1 leg. Meena has a round head and Leena has 2 legs. Meena has round, okay. And Leena has, no, this is not true. All 3 robots have 5 fingers.
Can you count?
1, 2, no. She's got 4, she's got 2, and she's got 5. Leena or Tina have their hands raised. Yes, that's true.
So what is the right answer?
I think, see, Tina and Meena are smiling, right? Then here, no. This is also a no. I think it is 1 and 5, but I'm not sure.
Can we have the participants tell us what is the right answer? What do all of you think?
We have the participants saying, see, there is 1 and 5, 1 and 5.
The poll question. Majority think it's C.
Yeah, majority thinks it's C. So do you think I'm right?
Maybe you are. Okay.
Okay, fine. So maybe I have all the 3 answers right because majority of them told me I'm right.
So I hope all of you enjoyed. So I hope all of you enjoyed solving these tasks, right? What were these? These were Beaver's tasks, and what Savita was introducing you to was Skip to the Beaver, right? So we have this whole story about our Indian beaver being called Kittu. And just to tell you that we at CSpathshala also organized the Beaver's Challenge. And what is Beaver's Challenge all about? It's all about getting students excited about computing. So basically, what did we do? We asked you to play these 3 tasks just to see, do you enjoy them, right? Does it require any prior knowledge of computational thinking? Did you think?
No.
We just had fun, right? And please respond to the chat box. This is all for you. So the whole idea is that how do children have fun, right? In the last 3 days, we have been looking at different activities, different approaches. And one of the things that we also do is run the Beaver's India Challenge for students from grades 3 to 12. Yeah, so these are numbers of the 3 Beaver's challenges that we have done. So if you look at 2018, we ran it in 3 languages in 12 states with 1,37,000 students, and then 2019 was 1,78,000, and this year 2020, owing to COVID, we were 1,03,000 students. So I just wanted to quickly tell you that the Beaver's India Computational Thinking Challenge will be run from 15th to 27th of November this year for age groups 8 to 18, grades 3 to 12. It will be offered in English, Gujarati, Marathi, Kannada, Odia, Tamil, and Telugu. This is the link where you can register your school and your students. All students have to be registered through a school. So as a teacher, you can register as a coordinator. And then once you register the school, you can upload your student details. And all that the school needs is a connection to the internet and some computers that the students can use to complete the challenge. Now, considering the challenges faced due to the global pandemic, students can also take the challenge from home. So I will put this link in the chat box so all of you can have a look. Yeah, 1 minute. And Savita has a browser open, so we can even walk you through the website. And if you have any questions, you can write to us. So this is what the website looks like on the TCSIM platform, and here you click to register your school. These are some basic instructions, and these are the school details that will be required. And once you complete the school registration, you will receive an email, and you also get an OTP for your coordinator's mobile number verification. Once that is done, all that you need to do is upload your student details. So yes, thank you so much, and you can reach out to us if you have any questions regarding Beaver's challenge, and I will just post the link in the website, in the chat box for you. Yes, so it's 3:30 and time for us to begin the next session on CT and math. And we have Manish as the session chair. Manish, over to you to introduce our teachers.
Hi, thank you, Sonia. So we have today after this very interesting talk by Wolfgang Slaney on Catarabot, we have today Tahir Rahman, who is from Pakistan and currently investigating ICT for education as his PhD. And we also have Aditi Iyer from Center for Creative Learning, IIT Gandhinagar, Gujarat. So I will hand over to these teachers. Thank you.
Hi, I am Tahir Ramzan from Ashraf Iqbal Workshops of Pedagogy, Pakistan. The title of my today's presentation is The 2D and 3D Motion, Learning through the Best Mix of Pedagogy and Technology. Motion is the most ill-understood concept. Uniform circular motion is present in galactic as well as atomic level. Projectile motion is studied extensively in schools, colleges, and the first course of calculus in the universities. There are many examples of 2D and 3D diagrams available on the textbook as well as on World Wide Web. At Ashraf Iqbal Workshops of Pedagogy, we found there is a problem with the concept of motion. Like, time is not present in the 2D and 3D motion diagrams, which is complicating and confusing the concept. And in the equation in the form of x square plus y square is equal to r square, there is no time. And it is a pedagogical hurdle to understand the concepts of motion and utilize that. With the help of technology, particularly GeoGebra, we can incorporate the concept of time in our diagrams in color using colorful simulations like this. This is a very simple and straight simulation. You can see there are 4 points A, B, C, and D. These all points will move into a circle. but with different velocities. So this simple example will illustrate not only the concept of functions like exponential functions, linear functions, logarithmic functions, but the concept of displacement, velocity, and acceleration, which are really important to understand with regard to time. Let me play this. You can see A is moving really fast. B, C, and D are very slow. And we can observe A is slowing down somehow. And C and D are increasing their speeds. This can be a game as well. Like we can easily insert a picture of cars in place of A, B, C, and D point to make it quite playful and interactive for school students. This can be a game of cars. Students can bet on these cars and challenge each other that the student who will win will have a better concepts of functions, that how linear functions, how exponential functions, how composite functions, how logarithmic functions work. So these type of concept and simulations make these type of difficult concepts to make them really easy. So we are working on these type of simulations which help students to understand different concepts of 2D and 3D motions, projectile motions, and uniform circle motions, and make connection between them. There is another screenshot from another simulation where there is we presented projectile motion where the horizontal velocity is different in all three objects, and the height is same, the time length is same. You can see the throwing height is same and the elapsed time is same, and the falling time is same, but the projectile is different for each of these objects. So these type of simulations really help students to understand the underlying concepts behind the displacement, velocity, acceleration, gravity, etc. in a meaningful and playful environment. Here is another example of one simulation where there is a object moving in the circle. In this screenshot, you can see the x and y component of displacement as well as direction of displacement. Now you can see the direction of velocity as well as x and y component of velocity. Now you can see the direction, amplitude of acceleration as well as x and y components of acceleration. And in this example, you can see all of three. So this can help students to understand the underlying concept of these confusing and complex topics, which is not possible without the help of the interactive softwares like GeoGebra. Like earlier, there was 2D diagrams on the textbooks. We are making these type of stories to help students make these concepts playful and easy. When we make connections and connect projectile motion to uniform circle motion, and then the motion of heavenly bodies and satellites, and then ask questions like when will the object or satellite or planet start orbiting the sun or orbiting the earth, etc. What will be their orbit: circular, elliptical, parabola, hyperbola, all forms of conic sections. These all make connections, and students start understanding these confusing concept in a really enjoyable environment. So this is what we are doing. Thank you. Questions?
Hello, I am Aditi from Center for Creative Learning, IIT Gandhinagar, and we will be discussing this paper on computational thinking based on geometry of vegetables. So about a year ago, with the help of CBSE and Vigyan Prasad, we at Center for Creative Learning, IIT Gandhinagar, conducted an online program called the 30-30 STEM. So this program aimed at discovering the beauty of mathematics and science and nurturing the inherent curiosity by engaging in hands-on activities. So generally in classes, we try to start from a subject and then move to an object. In 30-30 STEM, we tried the other way around, started with an object and then moved to a subject. For example, we took objects like an A4 sheet, like a candle, bicycle, cricket, vegetables and many more, and then started relating it to different subjects. One such episode focused on the mathematics and the computational thinking behind vegetables, and we designed many hands-on activities to make learning mathematics and science more interesting. We started with some interesting questions and we could interact with the audience using item pool, so we could get real-time answers and feedbacks from the audience. So to start with, let me ask you a very interesting question. How would you best describe a locky, or what we call a bottle gourd? Would you call it a circle, a rectangle, an ellipse or a sine wave? And to understand this, let's take a look at the locky we have. So this is a piece of bottle gourd, and what we are going to do is take out a piece from it. Now this piece we will try to cut such that the diameter of this locky is same as the height is. And what we do is we cut out a piece. So now when we look at this piece and see it from the top, what we see is a circle. If we keep it flat like this, what we see is a rectangle or a square. Since we had taken the diameter and the length or the height here equal, the shape which we get is a square. Now what I do is I take my knife and make a slant cut. So I'll start from this corner here and move diagonally to the opposite corner here. So let me do this. So we have two pieces. So when I take one of these pieces and see it from the top, I still see a circle. But when I see it in a plane perpendicular to the surface, what I see is an ellipse. Now, how do you prove it is an ellipse? One more very interesting question is that if this is an ellipse, how would you locate the two focus of these ellipses? And to understand this, we have a wonderful GeoGebra model which is very non-intuitive. It is based on something called as the Dandelin sphere, and what we have here is a cylinder just like a gourd, and we have made a slant cut on it. So what we get is an ellipse in the middle here. Now to find the focus of this ellipse, we drop two spheres, one from the top and one from the bottom. These two spheres are tangent or touch our ellipse at exactly 2 points, and very non-intuitively these 2 points are the focus of this ellipse. And why stop at the ellipse? Since we still have the knife, what we can do is take off the peel of this section what we get is a sine wave. You can actually cut it and see. Now, assuming that the radius and the height of this cylinder piece was 1 unit and both were equal, we get the area of this whole cylinder to be 2 pi units. Now, since we divided it into 2 equal parts, the area of each of these parts would be equal to pi units. So the area of this sine curve is exactly pi units, which is same as the base of the cylinder. So if the radius here is 1, the area of this circle would also be pi. Now what I do is, at an exactly half distance, I make a horizontal cut like this. So we have 2 pieces here, and if we take this top piece, the area of this piece is exactly 1 unit, which is same if we have a piece of square whose sides are 1 unit each. This can also be visualized using this GeoGebra model. So the fact that a piece of a cylinder is independent of pi gives a sense of wonder, and it helps us think critically using computational thinking. Next activity, we would need a Mosambi or a sweet lime, and what we are going to do is make a slice out of it. So we have a sweet lime, and what we have done is cut a slice from it. Now what we do is we cut another piece from the sweet lime such that both have the same height. So we have 2 pieces here who have the same height. Now what can you say about the area of these 2 pieces? And the result of this is, well, it's mind-blowing. So long back, Archimedes proved that if you have a piece of a sphere, both of equal heights, irrespective of from where it was cut from, both these pieces will have the same area. Archimedes also proved that if you have a cylinder and a sphere, both of the same radius and the same height, then both the shapes or both the pieces will have the exactly same area. In our classes too, we could pose this as a problem, asking students prove how these areas would be equal. One more thing which we do in the classes is simply say that the volume of a pyramid is equal to 1/3 the volume of a cube. So what I have here is a cube which is being cut out from a potato, and the question which can be put forward to the students of the class could be, you need to cut 3 pyramids who have equal area from this cube. So for doing that, what they would have to do is pick out a vertex, and there will be 3 sides along it. Then what you do is you start cutting from this vertex and move along the opposite edge. So you go diagonally to the opposite edge and you make this cut. So what I get here are 3 pyramids which are equal in volume and whose base is the square from the previous cube. In engineering, there is a subject called as engineering drawing, where you would be given an object and you will have to view it from different directions and put it into papers. Something very similar happens even in class 7th or 8th, where students are asked to depict the front view, the top view, the back view on a paper of an object. But often what happens is these objects are not real. Students can't feel it, they can't see it, they can just see it in papers, which is not how it might be done. So in the episode, we had a very interesting question, which was to cut. In engineering, there is a subject called as engineering drawing, where you would be given an object and you will have to view it from different directions and put it into papers. Something very similar happens even in class 7th or 8th, where students are asked to depict the front view, the top view, the back view on a paper of an object. But often what happens is these objects are not real. Students can't feel it, they can't see it, they can just see it in papers, which is not how it might be done. So in the episode, we had a very interesting question, was to cut out a single piece of gold in such a way that you can see a circle from one side, a triangle from the other, and a square from the third side. We got some amazing answers from the participants. So all these hands-on activities and homework problems, along with the stories, engages everyone and helps them think critically. The engagement graph of this episode also shows something very similar. So the average view time of this episode was about 10 minutes, which is exceptional for an educational video, where the average view time is less than 2 minutes. About 30,000 viewers joined us live, which was even more exceptional. Participants' feedback also shows how they think about a problem for weeks and just feel happy when they come up with an answer. This suggests that stories, real life context, object-oriented activities, and thought-provoking questions can bring back the fun in learning. So when we start with a relatable object and then move on to subjects like math, science, history, and many more, what happens is this triggers the computational thinking and the thinking capacity of everyone. So our experience of working with teachers and students to develop these activities suggests that these types of activities and lessons can help us achieve the interdisciplinary approach and give students a space to think. Thank you.
Manish, you are muted. Can you please unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry. So I'm very much thankful to both the presenters, Aditi and Tahir. And this was a very, very engaging and interesting talk, especially how to cut the vegetables. And thanks, ma'am, for that. So any questions from the audience?
I actually had a cucumber here next to me, and I just that puzzle, no, of a circle from one side, of something being a rectangle from one side and a triangle from other. I just did right now.
Aditi, actually, what is happening is that because you are having
Because of the background, yeah.
Yeah. So it's going in the background.
Yes.
So
May I ask a question? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There are no other. Yeah. Yes, Manish, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So very, very enjoyable presentations. Thank you very much. Tahir, I wanted to know whether apart from GeoGebra, Are there other tools that you've considered, and what is your experience with other computational tools? And are there any particular sources of dissatisfaction, for instance, with explorations that you've had with these tools? Because, that might be of interest to others. I
Okay.
also had a
We
question
have
for Aditi maybe later. Yeah.
Okay. We have explored MATLAB, Mathematica, and some other tools, but GeoGebra is open source and free, and nobody can beat this. Anybody can use this, and it is very easy. It is for students. Like MATLAB, that is not for students. GeoGebra can be used by primary school students or middle school students. That's why we love GeoGebra and we promote it.
Yeah, something very similar for us also, sir. Since it was free and it was available and you could use your creativity as much as you want, we tried GeoGebra more.
So I am also using.
Also, it is also available on web, on tablets, on mobile phone.
No, it's one of the best. I mean, it's just that there are also some problems that we get. So I wanted to know your thing. That's absolutely fine. I had a question for Aditi. What about conic sections? Are you able to develop these ideas for conic sections as well? You know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Explode? Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, like we did it for cones also. So, conic section generally starts with a double cone, and then you start a different section. I could not include it in the presentation, but we had it for cones and for even your bhindi, right? So, it's a pentagon and then it's a pyramid. So, all these different shapes, we also tried exploring that. So, conic section, and the best thing, that dandelion sphere, which I just told, so that sounds even more interesting when you have a cone and then you insert a sphere on the top and the bottom. So you still, if you make a slant cut, you still have an ellipse, and then you are able to find the centers, the focus of the the ellipse. And so what we did was we actually tried finding these points, these focus points, using like proper geometry, just trigonometry, nothing more, and the definitions and coordinate geometry. So that was even more interesting because simple coordinate geometry and trigonometry could lead us to a point which showed that, oh, this will be the focus.
So there is one question for
Nikhil had something on chat.
Yeah, Jam. Any more questions you have?
No, I think Nikhil has something on chat. So.
Yes. So I will read those questions. So there is one question for Tahir. It is how we use GeoGebra in classroom to draw a circle and how to measure radius. This is by Madam Priya Dakle.
Okay. It is very simple tool. I can demo that within no time. Is my screen is visible?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Just open this screen. You can open without downloading it from the web, and you can also install one of version like 5 or 6. Just click this menu and you have 2 options here. Actually 3, but you can use this. You can set the radius like 3, and you can also use some slider like A. And then you can use the value of and play with it like this. Can color. It is very easy.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah. So the next question is for Aditi. It is like, what is the thought process of associating physical objects with mathematical equations? This is by Nikhil Karkare.
So what happens is, it's not only mathematical equations, it's just you start with something which you can relate. So not only this, but even if you have, like we tried recently, we had a A4 sheet, and how do you divide it into 3 parts? How do you divide it into 5 equal parts? How do you, because dividing it into 2 equal parts is something similar. So what is the process? You have origami, right? So you have 2 folds and it gives you 1/3. How does it actually give you 1/3? So when you start exploring those questions, acha, we got 1/3 portion. But then when you start asking that question, how did you get 1/3? You start developing those equations if needed. Otherwise, simple geometry and simple concepts can actually give you how it comes out to be that. So it's just that you start relating. So I remember after this vegetables thing, we were having tea that day in the canteen, and there was a roti folded with jam. So sir just asked a question, if you take a bite, and if you open that roti, what would be the shape which you get? And whether that is related in some if that is a mathematical equation in some way. So it's just that you keep observing things around and you try to see if something interesting can come up. Many times nothing would come, but then sometimes some interesting stuff would come out. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Aditi. Thanks a lot, Tahir. I think we are, if there are no more questions, we will pass on to Geeta Ghormade, madam, for the next session.
Thank you, Manish. And I think the 2 presenters were too good. I think the vision of mathematics is the children should learn to enjoy math, and they should be able to relate math to the daily life. And that's what demonstrated by Aditi and the Tahir. So let's move ahead. We have 2 presenters in the same theme, that CT in mathematics education. We have Kritika Krishnamurthy from Azim Premji University, Bengaluru, Karnataka. Hi Aditi, hi Kritika. Are you there, Kritika?
Hi.
Hi, welcome Kritika. And we have another speaker, Rohini Khaparade from School of Scholars, Akola, Maharashtra. Hi Rohini, welcome.
Hello, madam.
Yeah.
And good evening to everybody.
Good evening. Atul, can we have video, please?
Children has already built in with the algorithms to grasp things around, internalize it, processes its thinking by observing, listening, sensing, doing, and the list goes on. In general, she moves from forming of ideas to performing, which helps in developing child's own knowledge and may create variations of expressions based on it. Shown here is just an example of computational thinking. So, computational thinking is not something new or will be learnt only in schools, but at the same time, CT in school curriculum enhances the child to channelize or to organize those abilities and skills so that it helps the child to attack problems of the digital era. Keeping this in mind, hereby going to present my paper. The Tamil Nadu state government has taken a lead to implement the infusion of CTE in math in a phased manner for primary classes. We began the process by understanding the vision of math curriculum as stated by the math position paper of the state curriculum. It envisions that school is a place where children learn to enjoy math, pose and solve meaningful problems, understand the basic structure of math, learn to argue and pursue assumptions to logical conclusions, relate math to life experiences and talk math. The teachers are expected to engage every child in class. Having this as vision, We began the journey with the process of infusion. We, as child supporters or educational thinkers and doers, knew that the child makes meaning from different things around. Especially the primary class children make meaning through sensory aspects, such as through repeatedly listening, observing things around keenly, touching, smelling, and tasting. They also make meaning through different forms of aesthetic senses, such as from rhymes, songs, dramas, stories, and so on. Having set the context by understanding the nature of the children, now the question that arises is, how do we link it with the math curricular goals? We have infused computational thinking through a lot of activities to help them think about their thinking. I would like to share you some examples of CT activities from textbook. Seriating, sequencing, sorting, iterating patterns, finding relationships, doing transformations, organizing, finding all possible ways to solve, selecting relevant by eliminating irrelevant, setting rules, recognizing and creating patterns of sound, body movements, color, shape, and the combinations of some of those. This matters a lot, as understanding of relationship between the concepts could be experienced only through such activities. For example, the plan of the maze activity is to make the children to plan, to choose the path, follow the chosen track, remember it. If some block is found on the path, then come back by detracking it. Then follow different track and the process gets iterated. These strategies help a lot in real life problems too, and especially to children who are in fear of math. Maze activity, though, has the objective to reach the destination correctly, but it paves the path to understand about direction, orientation, turning the object, about path, locations. So, the understanding of these helps in understanding the spatial relationship leading to construction of networks in topology or graph theory. So, to develop meaning making, the learning from these activities must be connected at multiple levels at different instances of time. This maze activity can be connected to map activity and blindfolding activities, to talk math, to follow the instructions by listening, to move in right directions, to seek help from peers, to ensure whether the blindfolded child is in right direction by asking questions, to relate to spatial recognition by sensing, and then to identify shapes by comparing the features by touching the object to the shapes already in her mind, to use a lot of meaningful vocabularies by sensing the object. These step-by-step process lead to zero down to identify the object by justifying that because of X, Y, Z reasons, it should be this object. It is also to sensitize that how the visually challenged people could face such real life problems. For example, activities are not only to do explore things, to connect the ideas to represent things, to link the child's context, but also to feel free to question, to express their ideas, argue, reason out to justify by involving the process of transformations from assumptions to logical conclusions. I mean, to do math, to play math, to dance math, to talk math, to discuss math, to argue math, to sense math, and to make math their own knowledge. How, why, and what do the infusion of these CT activities has to do with the math concepts should be known to every teacher. Otherwise, the activities will only be treated as activities and may at the worst may depend on the guidebooks available in the market, which may not serve the purpose of this infusion at all. The teacher development programs should happen at every stage and at every level on a regular basis, along with the supporting materials such as supplementary resources both in online and offline for the teachers on the purpose behind these activities must be made available, along with the discussion forums and conferences like these. Would usual assessment methods and tools work for this? The issue is that usual assessment test mostly whether the answer is right or wrong, focuses on the product rather than the process. For example, if the child is asked to count and answer how many, what if the child gets the answer as 9? What if the child gives answer as 11? Where is the space for the question paper to prompt her to think or to ensure that she counted everything only once? What is this assessment method or tool having to do with learning or enhance learning or identify what's the process that went in the minds of the child? If the assessment is for learning and when the learning happens through different forms of activities, then the assessment methods and tools also need to be changed. Assessment must be done while doing activities with the questions to make the children think about their process of thinking. Only then it enhances learning. Say, if a teacher must assess the pattern of sound, how can she assess it in question paper? By giving diagram of instruments in some sequence? Or letters like sa, re, ga, ma? Would that be fair? Instead, the teacher must make sound pattern, maybe with available objects. The children should be made to interpret that and then they should make sounds to show variations in sound, to follow the teacher's pattern and also produce variations in rhythms or create patterns in sound. Only through this, the teacher can assess the variations or logic of their understanding of pattern. In a way, it is paperless assessment. Children should feel the exams as light as air. Anticipate eagerly as festive season. Now, having said all these, it means that the content shouldn't be rigid because it is CT. It should be flexible to align to the context with variations, right? The Tamil Nadu government has begun the process of revising and redesigning the content to align to the post-pandemic situation. I would like to conclude my presentation citing the evaluation paper on assessment. Thank you.
Namaskar to all educators and dignitaries present over here. I am Rohini Khapade from School of Scholars Sakola. I have been teaching mathematics from last 15 years in this school. Now I want to tell you about this about my school. My school is a School of Scholars Akola, which started operating from 2003. Now more than 3,500 students are studying from nursery to 12th. About 110 teachers are teaching in my school. Out of them, 15 mathematics and computer teachers are implementing CSpathshala syllabus. As you know, according to the 2020 NEP, problem solving skill is the 21st century skill, and CSpathshala helps in developing this problem solving skill among the students using the computational thinking approach. So when I thought of making geometry easy for my students, I tried to implement computational thinking for making the geometry easy. Because when I came across the students are good at mathematics, still have a fear of solving the geometry problems because they thought that they are unable to apply the theorems properly. So when I studied this problem, I found out that when the theorems are taught in the class, the proof explanation is given more emphasis rather than making students understand the theorem. And theorems, as the theorem statements are neglected, students are unable to understand it, and the problem solving using those theorem becomes very, very difficult for them. So for 9th standard, I chose the midpoint theorem. For the midpoint theorem also the same thing happens. The figure is drawn, the statement is told, and then told that how to construct a line segment and then join them and then prove congruency and then solve. But in this whole process, the theorem statement gets neglected and the students are unable to apply it whenever that situation arises in the problem solving. So I have selected 24 students of 9th grade. Again, I took the midpoint theorem in consideration. As it is an online class, I took help of GeoGebra tool. The activity took 40 minutes. Let me tell you the statement for the midpoints theorem first. A line segment joining the midpoints of two sides of a triangle is parallel to the third side and half of it. For the teachers and for the educators, it might be a very easy statement, but for the students and others, it is a very complicated statement. So what I have done is I have divided it into small facts, small chunks, then converted that into a set of instructions. Step-by-step instructions were given to the students, and then those instructions I have asked students to follow using GeoGebra. Then find out practically what are your observations, write down your observations, and from those observations I have asked them to make a final statement. And then we collected all those statements and shared with all the students, and the generalization happened in the class using the discussions. So I can show you the instructions given, that when these instructions are given, I have taken the GeoGebra tool into consideration. So for each step they have a tool to use. Draw a triangle of your choice. Then I have asked them to take midpoints of the two sides of any two sides of the triangle, then join the midpoints, measure the angles, and then every time they have to write their observations, and then think of what relation could be there between the line segment and the third side, and then what is their final observation. They have to write the final statement in their own language. I can show you one of the students' statement over here. Now he has done this with the right angle triangle, and he said that in right triangle, a line segment joining the midpoints is parallel to the third side and as the corresponding angles are equal. So variety of statement came to me, and I am sharing two of the statements with you. Some of them have made the statement for scalene, some of them have done for equilateral, isosceles, right angle, variety of triangles they have drawn. And then when we collected all those statements on a Google document and they are shared in the class, then I have asked students that what are the facts which you think are common in all these statements. So they found out that the variety of triangles are there, but all are the triangles, so we can avoid giving the specifications about the triangles, and then we may remove the corresponding angles are equal, they are parallel, because parallelity of the lines is important rather than corresponding angles. And then they have also decided that they will be writing any triangle in place of right angle triangle or isosceles triangle. Also, they have some of them have measured the length, so other also tried in their own figure that whether their lengths are giving the same relation or not. And then the final statement was made that in any triangle, line segment joining the midpoints of two sides of a triangle is parallel to the third side and half of it. So we have reached to the final statement, which is quite similar to the given statement, and so they were able to remember this statement for the longer time now, because they have made the statement at their own by their observations. To find out the impact of this activity, the next day students were divided into 6 groups and were asked to apply the midpoint theorem to the quadrilaterals. So 5 out of 6 groups applied the theorem by dividing the quadrilateral into 2 triangles and were able to frame a statement joining the midpoints of the adjacent sides of a quadrilateral. A parallelogram is formed. Then I have asked them how they have decided that this statement is the correct statement. So they have told that when what approach they have applied. So they told me that as we have used the midpoint theorem in the triangles only, we have decided to divide the quadrilateral into triangles. So they have drawn the diagonal, and when they drawn the diagonal, they got the two triangles. In each triangle, two midpoints were available. So they have joined those two midpoints, and easily they were able to apply the midpoint theorem. And then they said that EF is parallel to BD and HG is also parallel to BD. So the two sides are parallel to the same side, so they are parallel to each other. So some of them drawn BD, some of them drawn AC, and they observed that in the parallelogram, the two pairs of the opposite sides, or in the quadrilateral, the two pairs of the opposite sides are parallel they got, and so it is a parallelogram. That was their final decision. So now I found out that students have applied the midpoint theorem properly. They have used the step-by-step approach, and also abstraction can be observed by, because they have avoided the mention of the midpoint theorem in the statement. So some students preferred one diagonal, other students preferred another diagonal. So they have successfully applied the theorem, whatever they have done in it. So I thought of that I have successfully able to inculcate this step-by-step approach and abstraction amongst them. I can share these observations with you of the students, and some feedbacks also are given by the students. And from this, I have decided that because my students are able to apply the midpoint theorem, I will be using this approach for other theorems also. And my students also shown the interest in geometry. So this this systematic approach, I am going to take forward for the next year also. I thank you all my my school colleagues, my school. I thank my CTiS for making this possible to present my presentation in front of you. I thank you, my school, my students, and my mentor for making me able to present in front of you. Thank you very much.
Wow. I think both presentations need a round of applause. Very well done by Rohini and Kritika. There are a couple of questions, and before that, there are comments, encouraging comments that if geometry would have been taught by Rohini, it was a wonderful subject and we would have learned in a fun way. And then Kritika said to do maths, to talk maths, to sense maths, to dance maths, right? And I think this should what happen in the class, mathematics class also. There is one question to Kritika.
Yeah.
Vinit Kapoor is asking this question, that how do you think we can utilize the various efforts we have seen from different universities such as Scratch, MIT App, Inventor, and Catarabot to teach the aspects of maths, pattern identification, generalization, like these kind of things. Any experience you would like to share?
Yeah, the thing is that we have tried to implement with the Tamil Nadu state government, where we have mostly rural areas, and practically speaking, in government school, we have a lot of hurdles like electricity issue, lab issue, and teacher development issue, and a lot of things are there. And apart from people-teacher ratio. So we have tried to use the unplugged approach in Tamil Nadu. And moreover, we want to make use of the innate talents and abilities of the children to use their own sense, their own physical features to bring about the patterns. See, patterns right from the child, when it listens to lullaby, no, it got used to the pattern of sound, right? When it got used to the patting of the mother,
only when the same pattern is followed, it will sleep. Otherwise, it will not. So it's not necessary that technology has to be used, but wherever possible, we can use it. It depends on the school's context and the child's context and everything. So these are the things we have tried that it is possible for everybody. Of course, it is CT. So this I think is the speciality of CT unplugged approach.
I think that's the answer for this. Any more questions? Please put your questions in chat box. Okay, I think in Rohini's class, she has given a lot of emphasis on, rather I should say, the freedom to the students to state the, their own version of statement.
Yes,
If
yes.
teacher put a lot of efforts, or just teachers state the statements.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Rohini, is that the approach that you always have in your geometry class?
I always try to do that, but when I started next chapter, what happened is that students studied the theorems beforehand, and they at their own tried to find out whether they are getting the same result or not. And then what happened is that they are coming with their version of statements to me, and then teacher, yes, we can say this statement like that and this statement like that. And that happened when I done this activity. Then I have asked them that in place of GeoGebra, then why don't you try it practically to be done in the class, or practically by taking your compass, you're taking your pencil, and when you try it, you will be able to understand it the most, and you will be able to apply it properly. So that approach is developed amongst them. And I also try, first time when I try, no, next time they only do it at their own. So then I don't need to do it again.
Yeah. So
Yes,
teacher has to trigger that moment, and then students stay in chat. Ramanujan,
yes,
raise the hand. Yeah, sir.
I wanted to ask Rohini about the exploration. If instead of starting with the midpoint theorem, if we just start with, I don't know, say a quadrilateral, and then say, join the midpoints and what you see. Did you try something like that? I mean, is there a possibility of the students actually coming to the midpoint theorem by trying out different? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Actually, this year I was thinking of doing that, because last year when I done this was the first time online school. So I have tried this the last year, and this year I may be approaching it in the different way. What you said is in my mind, but triangle is in next term, so I'm going to apply it in the next term. I mean, it is in the quadrilateral. So it is a part of quadrilateral chapter only. So right. I was thinking that, yes, I am going to do it in this way. So yes, I am going to do that in this way.
Yeah, and maybe they will look at polygons with 20 sides. I mean, GeoGebra has no problem with,
yes, sir. Yes,
whatever
yes.
kind of polygons.
Thank you for your suggestions, sir. I am going to do that. Thank you.
I think that's what is, because there is a chapter name as a triangle, and then quadrilateral, and then polygon, right? But then the order that is probably more appropriate is from a polygon to lesser number of sides. That's good. Any question we are having? Okay. One question for Kritika is, CT activities helped in connecting means how CT activities help in connecting child's context to the math curricular goals?
There are so many things actually. See, let me give you an example. In measurement, non-standard measurement, they do say that only hand span and foot span and all these things, and it is traditional and nobody bothers about, like, there is a huge jump from one thing like hand span and non-standard to the unit. So like even at home, the children don't use all these things, but they could smell what is being cooked in the kitchen, right? Isn't it measurement? And the mom knows, like, to add the pinch of salt, like to add the level of the taste. So like she uses like iterative thing, like whether it suits or not. So we have tried that, like we have just thought of bringing that to the main curricular. So we have also incorporated that in the measurement, saying that asking a teacher or somebody else to explain how she will add the lemon juice. Some may prefer salt, or some may prefer sugar or a mix of both. And like they will test the level of it by tasting. So measurement is being done with taste. So it is just the sensory thing that the child easily can relate to. And it is like relating to the math concept actually. So we have made use of the CT for math. Yeah, as I have mentioned, like there are so many activities that we have included in the textbook.
Yes, that all examples you have given there.
Yeah,
that's true. And I think the time is over. But just one quick small question. There's no question. Like you mentioned the aesthetic sense, and that was some different aspect as mentioned in your video. So can you just elaborate that how the aesthetic sense and CT you have correlated?
The thing is that math is like seen as something like a difficult subject, and fear of math and all these things are coming. And mostly people will talk about the concept and all these things. That itself will make the children fear of it. Like this has procedure thing, conceptual thing, and all these things. But we have tried something like fractals and patterns in math. So that's why we have included patterns in sound, patterns in color, patterns in body movements, which the children normally dances and got used to the music right from the birth, right? So yeah, we have tried to incorporate all these aesthetic sense wherever possible and however possible. So we had the flexibility in primary school curriculum. So we have made use of that.
Yes, so primary students learn through senses, and that's carried out slowly to the higher classes.
Even higher classes, but the thing is that in higher classes, the syllabus is heavy, so they don't have space to explore it. That's very true.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Kritika. Thank you, Rohini.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And very well done by all teachers. I think both days were really engaging and a lot of insight. How do we go about CT? So here we have a next session coming up by Vipul on CSpathshala. CSpathshala for teachers by teachers. Thank you very much. Over to Vipul.
Thank you, Geeta. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Sonia, am I audible?
Yes,
you are.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. And we are coming to the close of the conference. This is, I should say, the last official session, right, before the closing remarks by Jam. And we have a cultural event after this. And so here you are with your dancing shoes on and with colorful clothes ready for the cultural event. And if you're like me, with the Navratri coming up, dandiya's in your hands as well, right? I mean, but what you see, I am like a bouncer stopping you from going onto the floor. So I think let's make this session as interactive as possible so that we can make the time fly very quickly so that we can get you to your cultural event as soon as possible, right? But before we do that very quickly, let me just thank everyone. Let me express my gratitude to the OC, PC, everyone who's involved, because a lot of hard work and preparation went into this. If I look back at the last 5 years, since we started this, it has been a very satisfying journey. I mean, I've met so many people, and I'm just humbled by the fact that people can volunteer selflessly for such a cause, right? And believe me, given an inch, we have taken more than a mile from you, right? And we have never taken no for an answer. I mean, it's the passion that all of us bring in. I'm hearing some sound. Is that me or?
But you're preparing for the dance, you said, right?
Okay, yeah. So let's pack ourselves on the back for the same. So I'm not going to bore you with the journey in this session, but I was reminded of one of the slides that I'd used in 2016 at the very first workshop we did. You know, I had said that there's a community we want to build, and the community will be for the teachers, by the teachers, right? And I think we are getting there. I think through this events like CTiS, we have come a long way, and I'm glad to see us moving in that direction. I think I'm just reminded that in 2016 when we started, there were just a few of us with firm belief that we needed to do things a bit differently. We had very little pedagogical experience, no content. Actually one sample lesson that Nikhil had created, but lots of ideas. And I'm really amazed that several schools signed up for a pilot. Right? It's a huge risk they were taking. I mean, believing a set of crazy people saying things contrary to what they were already practicing, what the other schools were practicing, right? So I think some of you are quite new to CT. Some of you are quite seasoned practitioners. However, the question always remains, what next? I've attended CTiS, I've been through CTiS, CSpathshala training, but what next? How do I get this into my school? What do I do? There are several challenges I face, right? What I'd like to do today is like to see if we can steer the discussion in that direction. Uh, Trying to see what are the challenges we face and any thoughts we could collectively come up and seeing if we can find some clarity and some maybe not solutions but some clarity on what directions we could take, right? And just to provide structure, I've just taken the liberty of connecting with few people and who have kindly agreed to talk about some of the issues. And please feel free to post your question and answers to the other panelists, and or generally, if case you would like to share some thoughts, so that we can discuss that. So I will go through a set of thoughts from the panelists, and then I would like to open it up for everyone. So to start with, I think one of the biggest challenge we hear from all of you is that there is just no room in the curriculum. When do we do this? We have at times just one period. If you are lucky enough in an urban school to have computing period, otherwise you don't have time, right? So how do you get this into the curriculum? How do I integrate it? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite one person who has been running mathematics labs in schools to share her thoughts on how this can be done. You already know her, Janaki. Over to you.
Hi, hello. Thank you, Vishnu. I didn't realize I would be the first one. Okay. So, yes, drawing from my experience, am I clearly audible?
Yes, yes.
So, drawing from my experience of when I was a school teacher at the senior secondary level, and in the school where I was, we set up a mathematics lab, which became very popular among the students. And over the years, there were some phenomenal projects that came out. So the students would come together, and the teacher, myself, and few other teachers of the maths department would work with these students on various interesting projects. And many of these projects went a long way. I mean, these were projects which spanned over a period of 4 to 5 months. So typically, students of class 11 would have more time to spend on these projects. So initially started off with more students of the senior secondary level participating, and then it trickled down to even class 9 and class 8 and so on. The one thing that I would like to share is that, and of course thereafter, it kind of became a sort of a model for other schools to emulate. And there was a lot of requests from other schools that how can we, set up such lab in our own schools. And so then it led to teacher training sessions and so on. One of the things which I always felt is important is, that a school, mathematics is a core school subject, and it also provides, we all know that it provides many contexts for computational thinking. And technology cannot be kept away from mathematics. So technology in the form of various kinds of digital tools and programming languages. So, they help to mediate computational thinking and mathematical thinking. So we need a considered use of technology in the form of, dynamic software, like we just saw GeoGebra, computer algebra systems, there are so many available, spreadsheets, and even advanced scientific and graphic calculators can contribute greatly to this initiative. I feel that schools already have mathematics labs. Most schools have set up, at least they've kept a room aside for the mathematics lab, and computer science labs are already a part of schools. So why not develop a computational mathematics lab where mathematics teachers, computer science teachers, and teachers from other disciplines come together, and the projects that children undertake, projects that are given to students or project ideas which are identified by students themselves, these are interdisciplinary in nature in a way, and teachers from other subject domains can also contribute to that. And every initiative that we do need not fit into the curriculum. So the mathematics lab that I had set up there, this was way back actually in the Delhi Public School Archipuram. That lab was not really a part of the school curriculum, but the lab sessions and everything was done within the school hours. And it was only for interested students. Initially, it was only for interested students to come and join that lab. And it started with small numbers, but in a very short time, it became extremely popular. And then children would come up with ideas and say, I want to work on this project and that project and so on. And so it became a very lively initiative that also led to setting up of what is called a mathematical society in the school, which had school appointees. Like there was a head, there was a president of the math society. It became very prestigious to become a president or a vice president of the math society, and so on. So carrying that idea forward, if we have computer science and maths working together in the school, in a computational mathematics lab, and now in the online mode, you don't even really need a physical space as such. It can all happen online. Project ideas are circulated at the beginning of the year, and this can be together in collaboration with maths, computer science, and teachers of other disciplines also coming together, thinking of some interesting project ideas. These are floated, and time is given to children to work on these projects. And teachers, I don't know how much of training would really work. Like when I started that initiative, I had no training, I had zero training actually. One had to train oneself. So essentially, one goes through, one has to read a lot, one has to step outside the routine work of the otherwise work of teaching that is that in. But I think it's a very rewarding and a very wonderful journey to undertake. And I survived for more than 13 years in school teaching only because I was doing. Because by the end of 13 years, I knew, I used to teach class 12, so I knew which problem came on which page of the NCERT textbook. And everybody, so in terms of regular teaching, one could, of course, integrate interesting things in the regular teaching also because of this experience. But this whole project kept me alive and kept many other teachers alive who were associated with this initiative. So I would really say that schools should think of combining their mathematics and computer science labs into a computational mathematics lab, take up interesting problems, not worry too much about teacher training. There would be training sessions and workshops to give ideas and generate good ideas, but I'm not too sure if there's any formula in terms of training that would work. Interested people can begin and others will get inspired and will definitely join. It has worked, and that lab still exists there today, and there's a lot of interesting things happening. So with this, I think I'll put my case.
Thank you so much, Janaki. Great idea, computational mathematics lab. I think we'll come back to this later. One of the challenges that a lot of schools face is that there is a huge attrition when it comes to computer teachers, right? Teachers move, new teachers are hired. And I think biggest challenge then faced by the school is on training these teachers. And so I think Manisha had some comments that she would like to make on this. May I request Manisha?
Yes. Good afternoon. It's going so nice, very enriching experiences we are having. And I think it should continue. That's why I really want to focus on the specialized program there should be from CSpathshala for the new teachers. Because many of the teachers as computer teachers, am I audible clearly? So many teachers come from IT background. Some are MCM and all other trainings they have done, and they have used computational thinking in their projects, in their work, but they don't have any clue how to come down to the school level. They are not aware of the pedagogy to implementation of CT. So for them, there is a need, and one more area is there, that is Atal Tinkering Labs. ATLs are that AIM Atal Innovation Mission is establishing ATLs in many schools, and they are very ambitious about that. They also conduct many training sessions and all, and they focus on like four things: they are design thinking, digital literacy, computational thinking, physical computing, etc. But what I found, like I'm working with ATL from 4 years, and as a ATL like master trainer, I found that every time that computational thinking element is ignored, it is not given that important, or there is like not much understanding about CT element. So those teachers, those facilitators also need special program for understanding actually computational thinking. And as we have done in our school, like we have, like Jonaki said that maths and computer can go in hand. So here ATL and computers can go hand in hand. Many computer teachers are contributing in ATL, and ATL teachers are contributing in computer science. So that can go very well. So for them, I think we need a program. And if you talk about when to start this program, so as there are new recruitment in the schools in June, so June, July, they can settle down, and in August we can start the training program. And like Kritika said, it should be like discussion forum where the experiences sharing should happen, and they can meet other teachers, other practices which are going on in other schools, and including the experts talks, and especially they should know what is abstraction, what is decomposition. These are also important things. Like in the beginning we had such sessions, so I think that is very much needed, and it should happen periodically. So that is what I feel after this in this journey, I can say. So we can add more.
I think we have lost Manisha. I think her screen is frozen for me.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. I think that was a great. I think what she's suggesting is that we need specialized training guidance for fresh teachers every year in August. I mean, the teachers come with IT background, some of them, but they need pedagogical training. I think that's what I got from that. But I think the next challenge then is, if once teachers have been through training, let's say, training, it would probably, they'll assimilate a few things and they'll remember a few things. But after a few days of the training, after a week, 10 days, they're busy in their work, and it's easy to forget what you have assimilated in the training. So then there is a requirement to go back to it, and so how that's a big challenge for them. And I think Pratiksha had some thoughts on this. Pratiksha, I'll request you to share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Vipul. So taking this forward, like as you said, the trainings, the live training sessions are also given by CSpathshala, and we in the mega group of schools where we have implemented completely, we also give trainings to our teachers. But the thing is, if we remember the learning curve, like it happens with our students, the same thing happens with our teachers also. They tend to forget after 7 or 8 days that there must be something which comes handy. So what I think is, like we nowadays, all CBSE teachers are made to do Diksha and Nishtha modules, where the trainings, videos, and the PPTs and some contents are readily available. We can do with our own pace, and then again refer back to it whenever required. So if we can make something like this for the CSpathshala or CT teachers, it will be of great help. Like teachers, whenever they require, they can refer to it. Again, they can even contribute to it. Like some of the school teachers who have been taking CSpathshala forward for 5 or 7 years, they can contribute, make videos, and we can then just create a LMS sort of thing or some app where the modules can be put. And then teachers can regularly take help of it whenever they think of. And again, there are varied needs of the teachers also, like there are varied needs of the students. Like some have the programming background very well, some don't have, so they can refer to these modules. And that way, I think that can be helpful for the teacher. And that's what I wanted to suggest. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratiksha. Great idea to have an LMS with videos. And I think what you said further in terms of everybody contributing to it. So I think that would be great. So again, I call upon everyone to consider doing that. I think once we do this, I think, let's say we have finished training, as you said, maybe hopefully at some point in time we'll get the training. There always is a challenge that if I need help with something, I want to reach out to somebody. How do I do that? And every school has maybe 1 or 2 computer teachers. Making group is larger, so you have more, but other schools have few teachers. So I think Nikhil, I request you to share your thoughts on how can we address that issue.
So yeah, thank you. Thanks, Vipul. I think, great inputs from everybody today. There definitely is a need for coming together at a very hyper local level. We have been talking of forming a community around CSpathshala at a very large level since we started. But more than at a large level, of course, we do need it, but we need hyper local communities. So because schools in an area probably can come together, just 5 or 10 or 15 schools together can, CT teachers can come together and form kind of a local community, or we can call it a CT coffee club, where, they can meet informally, share ideas, share innovations in their own local language. And these should be attended by senior teachers like Pratiksha ma'am or Geeta ma'am, where they can give inputs or guide teachers on their daily challenges. So we know that the teachers who implement CSpathshala have a number of challenges which normal teachers or subject teachers don't have. So, they are also given other work, and, so balancing the act is a very big challenge for a computer teacher, so to say. I think that is, the challenges are different in different geographies, which I feel building a community together will help, at least resolve those issues in a quick way, where, we should be able to call up maybe a few community members once in a while and say, hey, I have this problem. Do you have any potential solutions? Where, the other person might be more experienced, and that can help. And we have seen that happening with many other fields, so we know that hyper-local communities definitely help. So I think CSpathshala should also do this at some micro level, where we are doing it at a macro level, but micro level needs to be implemented too. One of the methods which we could use to do this was also by starting some kind of a newsletter or a blog where local community teachers and everybody can share their thoughts and innovations in what they have done. And I'm expecting innovations to be there at every school, because we are just giving a very rough guideline on what to teach on CT. But I'm sure every teacher goes and innovates at least a few % here and there on every topic. So we expect this innovation to be shared between their communities on the blog or through the newsletter, where you can submit it, and we can have a monthly newsletter which we can circulate with everybody. I think we should seriously think about these things, because now the curriculum is set. We have a large network of very enthusiastic and passionate teachers, where we should now get them together, get them focused as a community, and just make sure that this becomes a movement of its own.
Thanks, Nikhil. No, I think great ideas, Nikhil. I think especially both of them. So I think newsletter, because I think CTI is kind of a forum. We'll only have selected presentations, right? Only a few people get to share their stories. But if we have a local newsletter, I think many more of you can share your stories through that. Blogs, the newsletters can help that us achieve that. Local clubs, any local requirement you may have, whether it is looking at new areas, new ideas, anything, I think a local club could help. So again, I have a call for teachers here, especially the senior teachers, or it doesn't matter really, right? I mean, anyone. Please take a lead and help. Let us help. If you need any help from us, we are ready to help you set up such a local. I like the name CT Coffee Club. We can call it CT CSpathshala Coffee Club, but I think let's do that. I think great idea. I think I like to. I think the next is I'd like to request Madhwan. I think Madhwan has been taking a course, had taken a course rather for undergraduate students, and I would like to ask him. What are the challenges that we see from both teachers and the students end from this CT as a discipline perspective? What challenge did you see?
So I guess one of the targets of this particular program where this course was being implemented, which is the new IIT Madras online BSc, was that it should be open to students not necessarily from a maths and science background. And I see a lot of the emphasis in the presentations here and all the examples focusing on students developing their CT skills through concepts in mathematics. And I think by the time they reach the end of school, certainly there's a polarization of students into those who appreciate these and those who don't appreciate. And I don't think that you're going to be able to win them back by doing this. At the same time, of course, there is, if we believe this as a skill which is applicable across disciplines, and especially in the context of today's data science phenomenon, data is going to come in all shapes and forms, and it's not always going to be about computing things which are of physics or mathematics type of thing. So what we tried to do was to design a course which was based on some very simple data sets where people could do, starting with very simple things, but also do more complex things. So just one example is that there was a set of grades, students' grades in 3 courses. So first thing was to make it tangible. So it was a small set, some 30 students, so they could actually physically go through it by hand if they needed to do things like compute the average, how many students are above average, this kind of. But then you come to more interesting questions, right? So supposing you want to form what we call study pairs. So you want 2 students to sit together and help each other. And to be compatible, they must not be too far apart in terms of abilities, but they must also be able to help each other. So one must be higher in one subject, the other must be higher in the other subject, but not too much. Now, how will you compute study pairs? What kind of pairings do you get? We had another example which had train timetables. So we actually took Duronto timetables, real timetables, and asked questions about how many ways you can connect, how many ways you can go from A to B, which are identify the junctions. So there are questions which are in some sense, quote unquote, real life, which you can bring in. And I think this is something which we need to look for. We need to look for more such examples, I think, to drive home this point that computational thinking is not only about sort of scientific or engineering type of calculations, but also is genuinely applicable in different contexts, which you are realistically going to see in your work as you go forward. So that's something we try to address. And I think that coming up with engaging examples, which are, it's the difficulty is always to do something which is complicated enough, but not so complex that people get put off by it, right? So how do you find that that balance? But so that's what I think has been one of our attempts to try and get past this barrier.
Thanks, Madhvan. And Madhvan, do you think that some of these examples you've chosen could be simplified further for younger age groups as well?
So I believe that the examples that we have are accessible to younger age. As I said, they have actually been used. So my partner in crime is G Venkatesh. And to be fair, I think I should attribute all these examples to him. I'm only a kind of co-author in some sense of this program that he has planned. But he has actually done this in schools. right? So actually with physical cards, and so some of these things were more elaborate, like the train timetables, but certainly this report cards or shopping bills, you print about 30, 40 cards, physical cards, and then you can actually share them, and you can actually make it an activity, which is another of these things which we discuss often in the context of school CT, that you want to make it clear that these activities of organizing are independent of actually using a computer, and also it gives you a better appreciation of how the computer works. So I just want to share, I just remembered an anecdote. I don't remember the exact details, but when the International Maths Olympiad was held in India in 1996, right, so there was actually a crisis the day before it was going to go live, because some enormous amount of printed documents had to be collated. I don't remember what it was, whether it was some rules or something. Right? So some large numbers of things, and there was actually a problem getting these things, sorted out and stapled in time. So some of you may know Vinay, Vinay. So he was sitting in this room and he was aghast, and he did a mental calculation. He figured it would not be done before the next day, right? So then there were some 10 people in the room. He just organized them and did a kind of manual merge sort, and it got done, right, in about 2 hours. So there are opportunities to examine these things in a lot of contexts. And I think people should appreciate that, we can apply some of these principles and things that we do in a day-to-day life, and it doesn't need to look computational in the sense of the way we think of computing with numbers. And so computing with objects, arranging objects, finding relationships between objects, I think these are very fundamental things, and people should understand how it works.
Sure. Thanks, Anand. So, I think the other area that I could think of, and I would like to really hear from the teachers on this, is that do you think that you'd like we should come up with newer activities as well that you can take to the students? Do you think that the students would like to see new things coming in where they just to keep them excited on this topic? So I think if you think so, do let us know. But I think one comment I would like to make, and one call I have from all of you. All of this, as I said, I think we are CSpathshala now, right? It is CSpathshala, it's not just a few of us who are in the top part of the screen. I think CSpathshala is everyone who is in the bottom where you see in the participant place, right? Everyone is CSpathshala. So I think really I would request you to consider all of these newsletters. Please raise your hands if you'd like to participate and take this forward. And I think let us together see how we can enable these, etc. So what I'd like to do, I'll just like to pause and maybe take a few questions or comments from everyone if there are any. I think Vineet has put in something. He's asked a question, how can we utilize the efforts of different application platforms that we saw in the conference, MIT App Inventor, and build a collection of library that can be used by teachers across India to teach CT concepts. And they do not have to put in efforts to build again. I think great idea that we can have a shared, I'm just abstracting out, that we can have a shared repository of examples that teachers can draw upon to take it further. And as always, I would say we are looking for volunteers, right? I mean, this is something I've been saying for the past 5 years, and I'll continue to say so for each one of these activities, whether it's a newsletter, what Vineet has suggested, or any of this. Please raise your hands. Vadhan, I just saw your hand raised, so.
Yeah, so I just want to, if you don't mind, on the chat, I'll put a plug for the book. So I'll just put a link to the book so people can take a look and see.
Yes. So I think I can see hands raised from Jam, Nikhil, and a few others. Wonderful. So I think any other comments, or if anyone would like to add anything, I'd just like to open it to everybody, right? So please, if you like to add anything, or you'd like to say something.
Yeah, I'd like to add in a few words if there's time, a minute. Okay. So there is,
a minute or so, yeah.
As you mentioned, Vipul, there's something new which needs to be tried out all the time. So like Vineet said, there is MIT App Inventor, and these tools, obviously they exist, but kids are, they want to see the real thing in action, right? One interesting area which is now coming up is no-code platforms. So they're mostly used by entrepreneurs or people who run businesses who don't know how to code, but they know exactly what they want, right? So they go to these platforms, design apps which are used by thousands or millions of people, and they don't know even how to code. They just know that, okay, this is the functionality that I want, and this is the output, and this is the service which I'm giving to my customers. So I think these are, this no code platforms especially, I think, are going to be the future of coding, in some way or the other, where obviously there will be programmers who are required, but I think in the background we will see a parallel ecosystem of no code platforms come up. And I think we should, as CT teachers, look into these platforms. There is an interesting site called 100 Days of No Code, which says that if you practice something for 15 minutes every day for 100 days, you get good at it and you develop a habit out of it. So that is one site. Bubble.io or Appian or many other sites offer these free app builders, which give you real life situations which students can use and apply their CT skills and see something in action. So they're very, very interesting use cases. I encourage everybody to go and take a look. You're on mute.
Thanks, Nikhil. Yeah. So any other comments? Else, I think I would like to hand it over to Sonia Jam for the closing, because we already overshot the time.
I can see here a question from Pranali. So she wants to know.
We can't hear.
So Pranali wants to know, is there any training session she can do from home? So I think till then she can visit CSpathshala website and go through the activities. That will be very helpful as a maths teacher.
One more thing, Vipul, I think we should also have a CSpathshala YouTube channel if we don't already have one. So, make it more active and people should be able to submit to it, where we can have a collection of all the training and innovations that they do.
Yeah, thanks, Nikhil, for the session. We do have a YouTube channel. I think what we need is, again, contributions, and we need people to contribute to it. Right now, we are also, I think this is going live on YouTube. That's again shared on the YouTube, CSpathshala YouTube channel itself. Yes, absolutely. Thanks. All right, I'd like to thank everyone. Thanks all the panelists for your suggestions, ideas. I will just put all of these together and then I'll share it with all of you as well and with everyone. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Vipul, and thank you to everybody for all your ideas. And yes, as the day and the conference comes to a close, over to Jam for his closing remarks.
Thanks, Sonia. Thanks. So, well, all good things come to an end, and this is the last session of the conference. And so we have met twice now under very extraordinary circumstances. Last year, when we met during the pandemic, we were largely taking the attitude of, well, maybe another month or two and we'll be back in business. In fact, I think the presentations were all of that category, where we thought that, we are doing something in a temporary mode. And 1 year down the line, we have been talking about online classes and what all things we have been doing online. Now, the pandemic has shown a tremendous divide in the country. While a certain number of children and teachers have had continued to almost seamlessly move from physical classes to online education, a large section have been outside all these things. Now we are closest as, once again, classes are starting, schools are reopening, and we are anxiously waiting to see how this pans out. Now, CTiS has, as a platform, has provided ways of talking about our experiences, but also looking forward ideas and ways that we can take this process forward. And this conference, I think, has brought in some very important issues of inclusion, equity, and a kind of social consciousness for computational thinking. I mean, we have seen keynotes which have, Patricia was talking about the role of data science for social projects. We had Hal Abelson talking about computational action for and by children, taking part in local action. And then we had Wolfgang Sleiny talking about children doing their own projects, and you were saying that it can cut across poverty lines. And so we have had, and then we had this workshop by Supriya and Manohar, where they were showing how, computational thinking for visually impaired children, how that could actually be taking up whatever we had been putting in the CSpathshala curriculum could actually make a big impact on the lives of those children. So the fact that what started off as a small group in Pune with many, many dreams, right? And people with volunteering, with commitment and interest, you can see how the tremendous range of how these efforts can build and become. And we heard, Kritika talk about Tamil Nadu textbooks following ideas from CSpathshala reaching, literally thousands of schools, right? So I think CSpathshala as a movement for bringing in computational thinking into schools, into curriculum, into pedagogy, into practices, and lighting up children's interest and excitement and creativity on one hand. And on the other hand, that it can find a place in society and can actually contribute meaningfully to the challenges of our society, our problems, is something that's something of a new direction for, I think, for this movement. And I think this conference has set a very good tone for us to think about many such issues. As we hopefully come out of the pandemic or find ways of living with these and go forward, I think the agenda is continuously being redefined and expanded, which is, I think, very welcome. And what is very important and interesting is that the community is expanding. The community is expanding very fast. Now, I think as we go forward, if Vipul's articulation of CSpathshala for teachers, by teachers, right, gets shape, as more teachers come in, own up and get into this, I think this particular movement can really make a big change. Almost everybody speaking at some point referred to how the Education Policy 2020 refers to computational thinking as something important. Now, what policy documents say and what happens in a classroom, we know there are always huge gaps, and the intention and what happens is always a big question. So the question is, how do we take it forward? How do we ensure that computational thinking reaches classrooms in the way we intended to reach, and with the kind of emphasis and with the kind of emphasis on promoting children's creativity and children's participation, engaging children, especially children of all kinds, children from all sections of society. So I think there we have had excellent learning from last year from the AP project. We have had presentations this time as well. I think in time to come, CSpathshala is clearly headed for much wider reach, reaching many, many different sections of our society. And to come up with both address both intellectual and social challenges. So thank you all for making this happen. I think CTiS is proving to be a great platform for us to get together. And I thank all the invited speakers who accepted our invitation and participated across time zones and made it happen. And all the presenters who submitted abstracts, and including those whom we could not accommodate in the program, and those who have given us excellent presentations. I thank the members of the program committee and who have ensured that this program goes smoothly, and also mentored all the participants all the way through. And lastly, the organizing committee. The organizing committee is in School of Scholars with Vineet and Geeta and the entire team in Nagpur, who have done a brilliant job, have accommodated all kinds of requirements and constraints, and done it really flawlessly. So much so that I think they are going to be probably permanent organizers that CSpathshala will want, right? Okay, maybe not, but yeah. So let's give them a big hand, and I congratulate and warmly wish all members of the CSpathshala community, especially the organizing team. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Over to Sonia for the last word as always.
So Jam, let me add that not just for CSpathshala, they are permanent ACM organizers. All.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Yes. So the program that everybody is waiting for. So please join us for the cultural event, and Sabita has posted the link. And thank you to each and every one of you, right, for being with us and contributing so enthusiastically. And we look forward to seeing you soon. So let's all move to the cultural program, and I'm sure there are some exciting performances, and we have some hidden talent which is going to come up. So
before
thank
that,
you. Yeah, sorry.
On behalf of the participants, let's also thank Jam and Sonia, the program committee co-chairs who led the entire program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
So we end this session now, Sonia?
End this session and move to the other link that she has put there. So yeah, see you there.
See you all there.
Yes.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Great job. Bye.
Come on. Join.